Hi everyone, I hope you're well. Please say hello in the comments, introduce yourself and we'll crack on. I hope all is good this week and you are all safe and well. So I thought I'd pop this one up straight away so you can get your answers in while I'm chatting away. Little poll we did at the start, and I think we know the answers here. Who have we got? We have got now let's have a look. We've got Jumbo Lizard here. Hang on a second. Why can't I get you guys up here? So I asked at the start which was the part you were most concerned about, and it is paper two. And I think paper two is the tricky one, isn't it? The 8 markers are nasty, but if you've got a bag of possible answers, I think that you can do something about them. I think that's something that you can actually deal with. But I understand that it can be quite a difficult thing to master. Hi Chris, how are you? Good to see you. Hi Yusuf, hi Aditya, hi Jumbo Lizard. And I'm struggling to find out how to put you guys up on the screen. Why can't I do that this week? Oh, there we go. I can put myself up. There we go. Aditya, yeah, 8 markers. We'll talk about 8 markers in a second. And I think paper 2 does generally cause the most anxiety. I think it's the algorithm. And then, of course, you've got these the sorting and the searching and all the rest of it. Yusuf, hi. Great to see you. Hi, Chris. Hi, Jumbo Lizard. And hi, Sergen. I hope you're doing okay up until Thursday when my team beats your team in football. But I'm not quite sure about that, so we'll see. So, have we got any Hash Brown Gaming? How are you doing? Thanks for dropping by. So, couple of questions to get ourselves warmed up before we jump into operating systems. So, what about this network? Only 2 you need to worry about, really. We've got the Mesh network and the Star network. What about the answer for this one? Hi, Flynn. How's it going? Fresh from your dazzling display in Educate. You guys did well in the Educate today. I was really impressed with that. So, what do we think? Which of these are true for a Mesh network? What are they? And don't forget, if you've got a bag of features you can remember about networks, and one of the features of a mesh network is that it's very reliable, but also it's very what? Is it A, B, or C? What do we think about this? Ooh, A and C for Aditya. Do you know what? You are partly wrong, and you are partly right. If I can find the partly wrong and partly right. We've got Yusuf who has said C. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll have to give Yusuf the round of applause here, because that is what we're after here. Is that mesh networks are expensive because you're connecting every node with every node, so they're pricey. And of course, don't forget, the internet is a partial mesh network because not every node is connected to every node, because that would require an awful lot of cabling and an awful lot of wireless access points. But yeah, it's expensive. Good man, Sergen. You're absolutely spot on, as were you, Chris. I think that Yusuf was the first man there. All right, so let's try now and have a go at this one. I've got a couple of these before we jump into operating systems. What's the role of a web server? Is it A, to control centralized access to website data, including content and layout, to allow the user to create their own web pages, or to request a specific web page from a web host and display the results? What do we think? What is the purpose of a web server? 3 flavors of servers that you need to be concerned about. We've got web, we've got print, and we've got file. They're all pretty obvious what they do. Oh, look at what we've got. We've got Yusuf straight in with C. And we've got Jumbo Lizard. Hi, Jumbo Lizard. Welcome with C. So shall we see? Shall we see if it's C? In fact, it is to control centralized access to a website. That is what it is. You all jumped on the C bandwagon. So I'm going to give you all nasty noises. What can I give you? I can't think of the nastiest thing. I'll give you an air horn. Man Like Paul, how are you? Emad, how are you doing? Good to see you again. Man Like Paul, good to see you. You're all jumping in now. A. That is the right answer. I will assume that you did that after I gave the answer away. Let's see. What about this one? What is meant by hosting? I nag each group that I teach about this question when they talked about cloud hosting for a legal profession. 4 marks for it. And you had to talk about all the sort of good things about cloud hosting, the fact that didn't have to spend big money. Did you do it before? I would not doubt you with a fabulous profile picture like that. Who could possibly be wrong? Emad's coming in with B. Aditya's coming in with B. B. You're all being. Should we see if you're right? If that be the answer. Do you get it? If that be the answer. Yeah, it's really good. It's B. Woo! You're all absolutely spot on. It is B. Right, let's push on. I think I've got one or two more of these. So you guys are nailing this. Incidentally, I am going to ask you about the registers again. This time you've got to get it right, okay? What did we have? We had Hash Brown Gaming with B and we had Sergen with B. That is outstanding. What about this one? What is cloud computing? Using the internet to communicate with others, storing hard copies of data as backup, or what's that last one? I can't read it. Using the internet to store and access data and programs remotely. Oh, we've got a few coming in here. We have got, oh no, I think we had Hash Brown B, sorry, Hash Brown C, Aditya C, Emad C, Yusuf going his own way with A. Shall we wait and see? We've got Jumbo Lizard C. Let's see what we got there. The answer is, it's C. So well done. I think it could have been Emad or it could have been Aditya. It could have been either of you. I'm not quite sure who came first. So that is good. You guys are absolutely nailing it. Sergen C, Man Like Paul C. That is all very, very good. Right, last one before we jump into today's sort of work, I suppose. What are these? Stores address where data will be read. Stores data fetched from memory. Stores results of calculation. Stores address of next instruction to be run. A, B, C, and D, which registers are these? Do we know? C is ACC. Ooh, okay. So let's say that is a good answer. What about the rest of them? If this doesn't turn up in the exam, you can shoot me. But I'm pretty sure they'll do something really quite similar on this. They love to ask about registers. And I think it's the most tricky thing. So C is ACC. That was Hash Brown Gaming. That's what we've got so far. Any other guesses as to which these are? Man Like Paul says B is MDR, I swear. Well, I'll tell you what, because Man Like Paul, that has got data in the title, that's a pretty decent guess. D is MDR. Okay, so we've got two MDRs. D's got an address in it though, so I'm not sure that could be good. Aditya is B is PC. Yusuf is not getting involved in this one. A is MAR. Well, okay. We got some of these right and we've got some of these not so good. Okay, so MAR, that is A. It stores the address where data will be read, all right? Then we've got the MDR, which stores the data fetched from memory. We've got C, which is the accumulator. I think we got that one right. And D is the program counter, which stores the address of the next instruction to be run. So work on those. Try and find a way. Use those mnemonics we've talked about to try to trick your brain into remembering what is quite abstract information. All right? Yeah, it was good. You got there. Okay? Try and get those. The accumulator, I think, is quite easy, the result of the calculation. But don't forget, if it's got the A there, that's for address, and the D is for data. So that kind of gets you halfway there. You've got an AR and a DR. And also the fact that addresses and data are treated differently. And that's the key to this, really. So it might be a question of going back to this diagram, looking through it again and trying to figure out how these things work. £1. Is that what it is now? Is that what we've come down to? Okay. But it was a good answer, to be fair to you. All right, so so operating systems. This one, I think this is a money for old rope unit, really. I think it is so easy for me. I'm not going to get involved in any purchasing of anything from anyone. That's just always such a bad idea. So let's have a look at this one. I think this is really quite straightforward. A series of facts that you need to learn. And it's quite difficult for them to actually ask scenario-based questions on this one. It's quite a difficult thing for them to do. So here we are, system software. We've got this one, and then the legal ethical we're going to do next week and the week after. And I'm aware, I'd asked some questions right at the start, and someone had said, I think it was Aditya, had said that legal ethical give him a bit of a headache, which I understand because it's the 8-mark question. I've got to say, the one that you got in your mock, I thought was a really nasty question, genuinely quite unpleasant. I'm hoping they give you a bit more help by actually pointing out that they want a legal, ethical, and so on answer. Um, is that a fact? Is that where it came from? Okay, I hadn't seen it before. All right, good. So this is what we're doing: the purpose and functionality. So what it does, and how it does it, I guess. Oh, the 8 markers in P2. Oh, okay. Oh, the 8 markers in P2. Yeah, there were some 8 markers in P2. Okay, yep. I think P2 is where we need to focus a considerable amount of work because we're almost done with the syllabus in P1. No, I saw Mardy was drinking some really red, wasn't it? It was very bright red colour. It didn't look like it was going to be dreadfully good for you. Yeah. Yeah. I think he got out of the lesson unscathed though. So purpose and functionality, user interface, memory management, peripheral management, and user and file management. So the things that an OS does. And this is simply a list that you need to learn, really. So let's drill down and think about it's the function, each function an OS does. So the things that are tasks that an OS does, the features of an operating system. We're talking about windows, icons, menus, and pointers. And then we've got memory management, transfer of data between memory and how this allows for multitasking. And we'll talk a bit about multitasking. Data being transferred between devices and the processor. And then we'll look at memory management and file management. And that's naming, allocating to folders. All this stuff is what the OS does. And they very often ask you for a list for anything up to about 4 marks of things that the OS does. So make sure you've got this list of things inside your head. Again, use mnemonics to record it. No, we haven't done this one. We haven't done this one. I've been through, I'm going through this in the order of the specification. And I've literally gone through it in order. The only thing I haven't done is one part of, I think it was compression because I was ill. And I've sort of put that at the end of the live stream, so sort of it'll be the last one now. But no, we're just going through it strictly in order. It's less complicated that way. Right, 10-minute teach. Let's talk about OS. And don't forget, this will be on YouTube 5 minutes after you finish, because I press a button and it's just there and it's public and you can look at it and you can take pictures of the slides, copy down what you need. But this is absolutely everything. Everything you require will be on these slides. You might need to expand it slightly. Okay, system software. I didn't take it as an accusation. I'm just saying we go through it in order. We're all very chilled. So what does it do? System software oversees the system. So when we talk about system software, we mean operating system software like Windows or like Mac OS X. And we're talking about utility software like disk defragmentation or antivirus software. These are all system softwares, okay? But what's their purpose? They oversee the computer. They look after the computer. And they support multitasking by controlling the memory. So the system software will control how memory is allocated to different tasks, which allows multitasking to take place. And multitasking is the ability to perform more than one operation at the same time. So, for example, you're surfing the web and you are, I don't know, what can be, you're writing a Word document while you're surfing the web, or you're playing some music while you're doing something else, multitasking, okay? System software controls internal and external hardware, and it uses drivers to do this, device drivers. It provides a platform for applications to run. Because don't forget, applications like Word, they can't talk directly to the hardware. They need to use hardware resources like memory, but they do it through the operating system. So it's a kind of middleman that sits between those two. It maintains the system, and that's the sort of system software like disk defragmentation, antivirus, firewall, all that sort of stuff. And we've got these two kinds. We've got the OS and we've got utilities, all right? So those are the two we're going to focus on. So two types of system software, OS and utilities. All right, next up, have a look at this diagram on the right-hand side there. And this just gives you, I guess, a kind of abstract view of where the OS sits. You've got the user, who uses the application, but the application talks to the OS and the OS talks to the hardware. So that's what I mean by it being a sort of middleman. And then you've got utility software, which kind of sits next to the operating system there, and does the same thing. So it enables the applications to use the hardware resources. And this is a bit of a random piece of information here, but don't forget the BIOS, the basic input output signal. That is a little chip which gets the computer started. It contains the firmware of the motherboard. It checks to make sure that everything that is required is there to get the computer started, and then it loads the operating system into RAM. That's what the BIOS does. Okay, sorry, that's what the ROM chip does. Good. After the BIOS, BIOS, basic input output signal, and that sits on the ROM chip. Okay, good. OS. Next, we're going to look at what is next. Okay, user interface. 3 types. Windows, a graphical user interface like Windows, a menu-driven interface like you might have on a cache point machine, or a command line interface is where you get that command prompt with a little chevron, the greater than sign, and you just type in text, okay? So you've got those 3 options, and you need to understand the benefits and drawbacks of each. So GUI, the graphical user interface, which is Windows basically, Windows and Mac, they're graphical user interfaces, and they're familiar on most devices. WIMP stands for Windows, icons, menus, and pointers. Make sure you've got that little acronym stored away. Windows, as in window panes, because that's what Windows, the operating system, is made of. Little windows that open and they hold icons and information. Okay, icons, menus, and pointers, and the pointers is the cursor that you move around. Okay, menu-driven systems, they have got they're very popular. They mean early mobile phones were menu-driven systems. But if you think about ATM machines, cash machines, a very limited number of choices, okay, cache machines. And then you've got command line interfaces. So when you watch the spy films and you've got the hacker, they're always just typing into a command line interface and they're typing code after code after code, all right? So those are your 3 types. And then you've got to understand when you might use those and when they're appropriate. And to that end, it's about the benefits and the disadvantages. So graphical user interface, easy to use, doesn't require specialist knowledge, but it's not that great for doing more complex functions. If you want to run scripts, it's pretty hopeless. And it's so much clicking to get things done. So you'd use a command line interface, which is way more powerful, but does require expert knowledge. Menu-driven interfaces, they're really easy to use, but they've got a limited range of functions. So every time that you go to McDonald's and go to the drive-through, or in fact you buy your Big Mac, they've got a really simple EPOS system where they just got pictures of things and they've got a limited number of buttons they can press. So again, menu-driven system. And if you're training up a 6th former to work in McDonald's and you're giving them half a day's training, you can make them proficient in a couple of hours. Okay, so that's your command line interface. Next up, where am I? 12 minutes to go. Okay, I'll speed up. Memory management. The operating system manages the random access memory and it releases memory for new processes. So it's in charge of allocating memory for different jobs. It also manages virtual memory. Does anyone know what virtual memory is? Do you remember? Question mark. Stick your answer in the comments for what virtual memory is. Okay, allows multitasking by managing the CPU's process so several programs can run at once. So if they go for a big question on operating systems, there are your 4 marks, just there. Okay, so take a picture of that, or again, I'll send you the PDF after the live stream. Those are the 4 things that you need to know about memory management, and sometimes they can go into more detail and ask you about that. All right, good. Memory management, tick. Peripheral management, which I find quite hard to say. Secondary storage, what do you mean? I mean, it will manage secondary storage in that it will, I suppose you can run disk defragmentation on it. But it's interesting, the OS is going to be responsible for retrieving data from and saving data to secondary storage. it does a whole host of tasks. So yeah, it does that as well. Okay, peripheral devices are things like speakers, headphones, printers, stuff that you attach to a computer, right? And it controls these devices and it gives programs access to them. And if you've ever tried to install a printer, you will know that you need something called a driver, which is a very small piece of software that allows the operating system to talk to the printer. So as new devices are created, a little bit of code called a driver is written that allows that piece of hardware to talk to the OS. It's again like a middleman to enable the handshake to take place and for the task to be completed. So that is what drivers are. They're software and they translate commands from the OS. It's just so that hardware can talk to the OS. All right, where are we? Peripheral management, user management. What's easy about this topic is that while you might not know these words and these phrases, you use operating systems all the time, so you do actually know how to do all of this. And again, if this pitches up in the exam, yes, learning it is not going to be exactly like a holiday in Barbados, but it'll be easy marks. User management, it manages the users. So when you think about having the ability to put multiple users onto a computer, you can add as many users as you like. So it allows individual users to be created and deleted. You can also manage the access level. So for example, on your computer, if you were a parent, you could give an account to a child and they would have or not have access to certain programs or certain websites, and that can all be done. So that's the access levels. And don't forget, that comes into security as well. It's a way of keeping systems secure. You can manage the settings in the user profile, and it provides a method for the users to gain access to the system. Again, can you see how each of these gives you up to 4 marks? And they will pick on one of these, and one of these will be in there somewhere. There could be 2. There's always something on OS because they always ask something on operating systems every single time. It's bound to be there. A little bit like turning plain text into ciphertext. It will be there. File management. So operating systems manage the files in secondary storage. And we've got to your part now, Aditya. And files are stored in folders. And you might think, well, thanks, Sherlock. We've known that for years. Files are stored in folders, but if they ask you a question on file management, that is worth a mark. And it's quite frustrating that some of you guys who are up at being predicted 7, 8, 9, you sometimes forget to put down the really obvious answers. And it's frustrating because just because you know it, the examiner doesn't know that you know it. File system allows users to, and this is a list of other really obvious things. So if they ask about file management and you think, well, it's just managing files, isn't it? No, here's the list. Open files, create new files, search for files, delete files, restore deleted files, move files, copy files. Obviously, delete files and restore deleted files, that's the trash bin, isn't it? Move files, copy files. The OS deals with all of this. So if they ask about file management, you should be happy. But you've got to remember the things you can do with files. You can open them, you can save them, you can create new ones, you can search for files. And the OS does all of that, all the indexing for your files. That's what the OS does, the operating system. This is a really straightforward topic, and it always sounds so obvious when I'm reading it out, but people just leave the obvious stuff inside their heads. All right, we have come to quiz time, 7 minutes left. Let's get going. Right then, what about this? Is the most important software that runs on a computer. That would have been more impactful if it hadn't taken me half an hour to find the right sound. So just to repeat, is the most important software that runs on a computer. Well, Aditya, do you know what? It just had to be, didn't it? Let's be honest, it just had to be. Hi, Sharjeev, how are you? Thanks for coming along. Emad is D, and Sharjeev is D. Yeah, you're all absolutely spot on. I mean, well done, Sergen, good man. A slight giveaway, I would say, that we have been doing operating systems today. But anyway, Yusuf, you are on fire. Not literally. And so are you, Flynn. Outstanding. What about this one? Man like Paul. Awesome. What type of software is needed to control the computer's hardware? What type of software is needed to control the computer's hardware? What do we think? So I think this was a previous one. That was Hash Brown getting it right. I think this is Aditya for the second time round. System software. A. We've got Sergen who's coming in with A. Any more? We got Chris. He's also in for A. And Hash Brown's in for A. So we've got Yusuf in for A. And I'll take one more. We've got Sharjeev who's doing A with that lovely picture that you took. Emad who's got an A as well. And a man like Paul who is A. So let's put you out of my misery. And Flynn who said A as well. It is A. You are astonishing. Well done. I think we've got a couple more. To allow a user to interact, B, C, and D. To allow a user to interact with an operating system, it must have a... To allow a user to interact with an operating system, it must have a what? It must have a user interface. 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 Well, this has to be the right answer because everyone's saying it. Should we check? Yusuf's come in. It must have a user interface. It indeed must have a user interface. Well done, man like Paul. Well done, Yusuf. You are all superstars. Right. Where are we? I've got 4 minutes left. Which type of user interface contains Windows icons, menus, and pointers? WIMP. Windows icons, menu, pointers. Remember the WIMP as you go in. It's a GUI. For extra credit, it's a GUI. You're quite right, Aditya. What does GUI stand for? It's not a chocolate pudding. Hash Brown Gaming's B. Sergen's a B. You are all correct. What does GUI stand for? GUI. What does it stand for? Emad's a B. B, I swear. You are right. You are right. Absolutely spot on. Okay. Yusuf, B. Oh, did you come in with graphical user interface? Correct answer. So Windows is a GUI. It's a graphical user interface. All right, what's next? GUI. Let's go on. How many more have I got? I will be finishing on time, I can tell you. Here we go. Dividing tasks so that the operating system appears to multitask is dealt with under what? Let's have a random bicycle horn. Memory management. Okay. Dividing tasks, so operating system multitask is, you're absolutely spot on. It is absolutely right. Sergen, hang on, let's go. You all got this right, actually. Aditya, and you came in with B, Yusuf. Flynn, it was graphical user interface. Emad, you were right. Hash Brown, you were right. Sergen, you were right. And then for this one, Emad is saying D. Aditya is saying D. And Yusuf saying D, and Chris is saying D, and Sergen saying D. I can get a sort of general message here. Well done, Flynn. Well done, Hash. That is absolutely spot on. The answer is indeed D. If I can just click through to the next one. Right, there we go. Outstanding. 58. So close. I've got a feeling this is the last one. Operating systems will allocate sections of RAM to the processor as part of... I thought we just had this one. We'll allocate sections of RAM to the processes as part of what? What do we think? What do we think about that? Any ideas? Yeah, I can see all the D's coming flashing through now. So we've got Hash Brown with a D. We've got Flynn with a D. We've got Emad with a D. We've got... There's Emad with a D. We've got Yusuf with a D. We've got Aditya with a D. We've also got Sergen with a D. And we've got Sharji with a D. This is all sounding absolutely spot on to me. So let's put ourselves out of our misery. And the answer is indeed D. Okay, 1 minute to go. I think... Oh, is there one more? One more. Okay, that was right. Man like Paul D, you are spot on. This one. If an OS has the ability to run more than one program simultaneously, what is this called? What is this called? What do we think? I think this one's quite easy, isn't it? Yes, of course it is. It's multitasking, isn't it? Aditya's got it. Emad's got it. Shajiva's got it. Let's crack on. That's absolutely spot on. I think we are there. It is multitasking. Outstanding. It is 7 o'clock, ladies and gents. You are all superheroes. That was a Yusuf got it right, and Sergen got it right, and Hashbrand got it right, and Chris got it right. Guys, thanks so much for coming. Next week we look at utility software, encryption, defragging, and data compression. People tend to get very confused around defragging, so I'll spend a bit of time going through that next week. Thanks ever so much for coming. Have a lovely evening, and I will see you all next week. Cheerio, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.